Hey guys, today I'll talk about multi-tenancy architecture with usage of Postgres schemas and Django. So what's the agenda of the talk? I'll tell you about what's the tenants, what's the schema. I will present different approaches to multi-tenancy versus the single tenancy, various solutions, various approaches for multi-tenancy, some use cases, and we'll get to Django tenants library, and then some real-world problems that I encountered, and some pros and cons. So, in the first place, I need to explain what Tenant actually is. Think of a team tenants as a customer. So, you want to create application that will be used by many multiple customers, and you want to provide software as a service. And then the customers, you name them the tenants. So now what's the schema? Think of a schema as a namespace within database. So each of the schema can have its own tables, if their own like objects, functions, etc. And the data which is stored in schemas is logically separated, and it's also separated by users' privileges and that kind of thing. So how can we manage the schemas within Postgres? So of course that's the basic command. Yeah, you can create schema with the name. You can create table which will be added to specific schema with the namespace. Like in here, namespace naming. Of course, you can select them, and what's actually important, what is really useful, is the show and set command. So the show search path will show you from which schemas you're retrieving the data. So in this case, you're only getting the data from the schema which is called public, which is the default schema for Postgres actually. You can alter this behavior by setting the search path to a list of schemas, and then you can retrieve data from the schema which is called my schema, and also public schema. Yeah. So what databases, actually database engines support schemas? The Postgres, of course. Apart from that, the Oracle and DB2, but the MySQL does not support the schemas. The schema in Postgres and on Oracle it's just a logical separation of some data, which is actually connected to the user of the database. And in MySQL, when you type create schema some name, it will create just other database. So there's no use of that in our approach. So yeah, we got first architecture. I will explain the multi-tenancy architecture in detail. So multi-tenancy actually is architecture when the single instance of application will serve multiple customers. So yeah, there's no physical separation between the instances. So there's one source code. Yeah, and think of it as a software as a service, right? So that's actually the best explanation. So in this approach, when you have only one source code, one code base. There's limited chance, limited possibility to alter your product that you as a customer bought. So we can, just tweak something like change some colors in the user interface, or maybe just change the basic business logic. But that's actually it. In the single tenancy, when the single instance application serves only one customer, there's possibility for further customization because you can alter the source code for specific needs of the customer. But of course, it's a hassle actually to maintain the code, to make all the updates. That's actually basically it. So yeah, when we create the software as a service and we want to use the multi-tenancy approach, what solutions do we get actually? The first one will be isolated approach, which is that every tenant will have his own separate database. But of course, it's a hassle. It's a hassle to maintain. It's not easily scalable. There's a lot of there's time needed to create, and time and resources needed to create multiple connections to the databases. So that's the cons of this approach. We got also the shared approach, where we got the shared database and shared schema. So imagine you have the, call it master table, or table where the data about your customers or tenants live. And then every other object in the database is related to this table. So, and that's of course troubles hassle to filter only the data that is related to this customer that the connection was made by. So that's it. And we also got the semi-isolated approach, which is what I will explain in here today. It's the shared database but separate schemas. So yeah, the data gathered by your application on behalf of one tenant is stored in schema, and other customers don't have access to it. So why we should, in my opinion, use the semi-isolated approach? It's because of the simplicity. They're only managing one database, of course. In case of django-tenants, there's actually not much you need to do in order to make it work. Yeah, so you're avoiding the hassle of filtering the database records, and comparing to the shared approach. Yeah, and of course there's the performance issue when you got multiple databases. You cannot just use the shared connections, buffers, memory, and stuff. Yeah, what are the use cases for the multi-tenancy? So yeah, when you think about it like a software as a service, so it could be application for some company which has multiple stores in different locations, and each of the store location is the separate tenant, because you want to separate the data about the products that are available at this site, at this location, from the other, and perform all the operations on it on this schema. Also, you can think of it like you got application for government, and you each of the local government unit, like local councilor, has its own separate schema, because you want to perform only queries, only like compute data only from your division or your local government unit. So think, or you can just have application for multiple companies actually, and each of the company just buy the application for its own use. So yeah, and that's where the django-tenants comes. Yeah, so that's the package. That's a library which is maintained and developed for a couple of years now. It's based on Django schemata, which is not maintained anymore, and django-tenants schemas, which is still supported, not so dynamically developed, but it's actually recommended for earlier Django releases when you got the South package and South migrations. Yeah, the original developer, the Tom Turner, is really like developed it dynamically, and it's really into it. He tried to catch up with new Django releases and stuff. Yeah, so what does the django-tenants package provide out of the box? So you got the caching, logging, static and media files, Postgres data, which are tenant aware. So basically, with the caching, it's the package makes sure that you don't have collision between different keys and stored in values stored in the cache backend. Yeah, stuff like that. And what is really useful, what I found really useful actually, is the tenant schemas salary library, which allows you to create and schedule salary tasks, which are also tenant aware. Okay, so I just want you to look at this one and see how simple it is actually. So in order to get django-tenants to work, it's actually, you need to change the database engine for Django. You need to change the database router. The middleware, which will make sure that that's on the request going into your application, it will choose the right tenant for this moment. And also you add to add the context processor to the template. It's actually good to go. And now I told you about the company which has multiple stores, locations. So how to represent the data about the different locations, different stores in database. So we create a model, and this is model which inherits from the tenant mixin, which provides the functionalities that will make sure that every instance of this model will be related to some schema in your database. So actually, it's that's simple. Just to maybe imagine the situation that this company creates new store, new location, and now you have to provide your application for them. So what you're going to do is just create an additional instance of this model. So we just provide the name of the new store, address, and stuff. Hit save on this instance, and everything will be done for you actually. The new schema in the Postgres will be created. All the migrations you have right now will be run. So actually, you're good to go. That's all you need to do. Yeah, and I need to explain the domain model. So basically, when your application is like that there's a request coming to your application, and every request has the information of the domain that needs to be wants to access. So on this information that the request is providing us, we need to choose the right tenant, like the right schema in the Postgres. So in this model, we will just provide the domain URL, and when the request comes, it will just search for specific domain, right? And which the information is held in here, and this domain model is related to your tenant model. So then it will, choose this store. So you want to provide that. You got the address like python.supermarket.com, right? And you want to access the data only from this store. So that's how we do it. You will search for python.supermarket.com in here, and this will lead you to the store. Okay. How to set up all the apps. What's new in here, like comparing to Django, it's the shared apps and tenant apps. So in the shared apps, you will provide only those Django packages, Django modules you want to be like the data of them will be stored in the public schema. So yeah, and then the tenant apps, the data about them will be divided in different schemas. So imagine you want to have the super admins in your application, right? And these super admins would be stored in the public schema, which is not related actually to any physical store. It's more of your storage. And also, we want to have the users, which are specific only for one schema, in order just to limit access to the data, actually. So that's how we do it. We provide this information in here. You just make sure that the information will be stored in public schema, but also will be separated in different schemas. So when there's a query in the database, you want to, just give me information about all the users. So it will ask the database to give them the information from schema which the query was made from, and also from the public schema, which information is available to everyone actually. So that's how we make sure it's done. Yeah. The Django tenants provides the new management command. It's migrate schemas, which will make sure there's no, you don't really mess up your database structure. There's a lot of options in here. You can just migrate specific tenants. You can just migrate specific, maybe all the shared apps, or all the tenant apps, whatever. There's a lot of it. And what you need to remember is that you cannot really use these ones. Like when you run the Python menchpy migrate in your Django tenants application, yeah, the database just break actually. Yeah, yeah, you'll be there will be a lot of errors like collisions and stuff. It's a mess. So please remember, just don't do it. Like, one thing I will ask you. But if you mess up your your migrations, we can use actually the schema to the schemas to resolve this issue, that to help resolve actually. So what's really helpful is that in default settings of the Postgres, all your data is stored in public schema, which is already there. So when you get your application and you just drop the schema, just remember to use Cascade because it will, remove all the relations and objects stuff. You can just drop the schema, create it again, grant the permissions, and actually it's good to go. You don't need to drop the database and create it once again. It's already there, but it's just cleared. Okay. So what additional use does the Django tenants provide? So how to retrieve current tenant model? Okay, so that's as simple as that. You just the Django tenants make sure that the tenant is also available from the connection, and that's actually the whole the tenants model instance. So you can just just access all the names, all the domains of it, and it's really helpful for actually knowing where you are, because you just need to maybe provide the information of the domain for the email. You want to send an email with the link, and you need to know the domain which you're currently using right now. So yeah, the other thing is that the tenant model, the model instance, is added to the request, so that's actually really helpful too. There are situations when you want to dynamically set the tenant. Like, okay, there was a request for this tenant, but I need to do something in the other. So we need to switch the context, like switch the schema within a database. That's actually how you do it. In here, using the set tenants methods of connection and providing the tenants and model instance as an argument, we just switch the schema that you will retrieve information from. So when you set the tenant for Python store and query all the employees, you will get different results than in this operation, because in here you just switch the context. You just switch the schema that you retrieve the information from. Okay. Yeah, there's some other utilities that is really useful. The first one is the context manager, which will take as a parameter the schema name. So you want to perform queries from public schema. So yeah, you just go with schema context, you provide the public, and all the queries which will be done within the context manager will retrieve the data from public. That's similar as tenant context, but it provides the tenant model instance. And then in this one, get tenant model, you just really don't want to remember which model in your database is actually stores information about the customers. So yeah, you just it will return the model for you. And in here, it's actually really useful the get public schema name, but I will show later. It will just return the name of the public schema, because it don't really need to be the schema name which is public. Yeah, you can just name it whatever you want. Okay, some solutions for problems. The thing is that you cannot actually perform a query within Django tenants. It will retrieve all the information from all the schemas for you. So we need to go like this. Just in this situation, we know that in the public schema, we do not store information about the employees. So using the exclude schema name, which is get public schema name, we made sure that we get only those like tenants model instances that are not the public tenant. So then we just iterate over it, and with use of tenant context, we'll just make sure that we now in the particular switched context about a particular tenant, and then we can perform the query, make trigger some actions or whatever we need to do. Okay, creating my application. It was the single page application, so there was React on front end and Django REST framework, Django on the back end. So I wanted to have only one domain for my backend. So so I cannot cannot just switch the context based on the domain, because it will be only one domain. So I need to make sure that to overcome this problem. So I thought that when you got the request for the front end, which is the Python supermarket.com for the front end application, for the React application, then if the React wants to retrieve some data, it will make a request to the backend, and I wanted to make sure that the information about the original domain will be passed to the backend, and on this basis, I can just switch the context. So what I made actually was that the React application passed the original domain in headers of the request made to the backend. So yeah, I just thought, okay, but it would be really hard to implement. I need to just search for it, but no, actually no, it's like a couple of lines of code actually. So I just override this hostname from request, and I just switched. I didn't get the domain itself. I get one of the headers, which will contain the domain, and actually adding it to the middleware classes, and we're actually good to go. So that was actually pretty quick, pretty easy. Okay, what are the pros of the Django tenants and the multi-tenancy itself? Like in Django tenants, it's actually easy setup, as you could see, but there was not a lot of settings and stuff. There's a minimal code base change actually, apart from settings, apart from adding some middleware and stuff. There's not much you need to do. Just remember not to screw your database with Migrate instead of Migrate schemas. Yeah, and it spares you the hassle of filtering based on specific model. Yes, so that's actually easy. The cons, yeah, there's no possibility of setting connection to multiple tenants at once. It is possible in Postgres, but not in Django tenants. So that's why we needed to, just iterate over tenant model instances in the previous example. Yeah, and it's easy to break the database with the Migrate. Yeah, that's yeah. So I really encourage you to try, because it's not many you have to do to make it work, and it's actually it's not a rocket science, of course, but it's really bumps up the experience with multiple customers, because just based on domains, you can switch the context, you can provide different data just based on the domain. So it's, you know, it gives you like with a lot of utilities that will make the process of the creation of software as a service really easy, actually. So give it a go. Thank you for your time. If you have any questions, just go ahead. Don't hesitate. Thank you. No question. Okay.
So each schema will be for one tenant, right?
Yeah.
So when you select from one table going through one tenant schema, you will see only that tenant's table, right?
Yeah.
If you change schema,
Yeah.
another tenant. If you select data through the Postgres schema,
Yeah.
you will see it all.
Yeah. From every schema, you can access the public.
No, but you see only public schema.
Oh, yeah, of course.
So when you go through the Postgres schema, you see everything. You see
Like everything from the public schema. Oh, yeah.
I mean, from all the tenants.
Yeah, okay.
Let's
So
say
from all the tenants, you can see all the data which is stored in public schema, right?
Do you see the additional columns that Django use for the separation of those schemas? Because the schemas, they are the logic separation of the tenants. Is there any way you see the column that ties the information together? I don't know what I mean.
But actually, there's no relation between them. So it's actually.
What does this schema filter in the table? Is there a column
But
that schema should filter that column?
It will not filter the column or table itself. It will retrieve information from different tables, actually.
Oh, there are actually different tables.
Yeah. So there's a
same table, visible table.
no. There's these are not the physically the same table, actually. There's a separate one. So when you go for, yeah, it was somewhere there. Yeah, right. So this table and this table, it's not the same table, actually. So in this example, you can have in each of the schema, you can have different structure of the database, actually. So that's what happens with public and other tenant schemas. But it could be, you know, you can have like schema 1, schema 2, schema 3, and in each of the schemas, the structure of the database will be different. So the database from different schemas are not related at all. It's separate objects, actually, within the database. So when you filter it, it will filter like schema 1 dot table 1, and then you can filter schema 2 table 1. These are the different things, actually.
So if you get that example you gave where each tenant is a different store.
Yeah.
Right. So you have the products they sell.
Yeah.
If you want to sum up everything.
Yeah.
You have to iterate through all the
Yeah.
tenants, get the sum of
Yeah,
the sales for each one. And
yeah.
then sum
Yeah. Switch the context and actually
you can just make one query.
No, for all the tenants. No.
Let's say boss come and ask, I want you to know the sum of all the sales.
Not in a single query, right?
Okay.
So that's actually the count. Yeah, that's one of the counts, actually. It can be done within Postgres itself, because we can just set path to, you know, all the schemas in here, like schema 1, schema 2, and what you got in the database. But it cannot be done with django-tenants, with Django.
Anyone else wants to ask any questions?
Okay. Thanks.
I'm just concerned about the loading, for instance, like in terms of high availability for those tenants. So like if you have the tenants, like a product, like a customer's product, like they have like 300,000 requests that fires to the database. Will it affect another customer that's another tenant, basically because they are using the same database, the same requests?
Yes. Yeah, because it's the same database. So yeah, in some way, yeah, that's true. But it's not really that different than performing a lot of requests to like queries to database, but with the same schema. Because the switching the context, it's not that it doesn't need the resources. Yeah, it's just filtering by the namespace. So it doesn't really affect that much the performance of the database.
Because what I was thinking was that if like, okay, I have like a tenant with very high load, then I have another tenant, but it's not that much of a load, really don't have much customers using their product. So like, definitely, because it's the same database, it's the same request being sent to the database, there is definitely going to be like lagging on the other customer that does not. And it's going to like, from his perspective, it's going to be like, okay, like I'm just having like 300 users using the system. One might see this.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. But it doesn't really, differs from the approach when you have like one master model and every other table is related to this model. But of course, this would be resolved by using separate database for each tenant, which is actually good practice when you got one big customer, which has big load, like a lot of requests. So yeah, that's a reason to move him to a separate database. Yeah, you're right. Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Questions?
Okay, cool. Thank you very much.